We'll now turn this webinar over to Kimberly for us to begin.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kim Brisky. I am the Director of Communications and Engagement at SomerCor. This is me and my contact information. And I'm here today to really talk about 3 great programs that we offer to really support small businesses looking to finance their commercial real estate and permanent building improvements to it for their small businesses. So I want to be clear up front, this is not going to be talking about financing working capital items. That's going to be things like operating expenses, inventory, payroll, rent. That's not what this conversation today is about. Today is about those fixed assets and building up with permanent building improvements. But so again, that's me, that's my contact information. And a little bit about SomerCor, if you don't know who we are a nonprofit lender certified by the Small Business Administration. What we do primarily is actually originate and service SBA 504 loans, which we'll hear a little bit more about in this presentation. We also, on behalf of the City of Chicago, administer the Small Business Improvement Fund, or SBIF, and the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, NOF. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Feel free to keep my contact information so that you can send any follow-up questions. I'll kind of take a break after the first section as an opportunity for questions, and then we'll keep going forward. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I think the easiest way to kick off this conversation is to talk about the 2 grant programs in terms of their similarities. First of all, I just want to give a quick shout out to Small Business Improvement Fund. SBIF is celebrating 25 years. It's one of the longest running, most successful programs I think that the city offers. So both of these grants are actually run through the Chicago Department of Planning and Development, but they are administered by us at SomerCor. And these are really about economic development and permanent building improvements. And it's not only for the individual businesses, but also to really build up the entire commercial corridor. As a reminder, residential projects are not eligible. And again, these funds cannot be used for working capital. All applicants for these grant programs are going to have to fulfill a financial requirement. This means it's a reimbursement grant that you will be putting money forward and then be paid back at the end. Showing proof of financing and contributing a portion of the total project cost is going to be required. Eligible work items, things you can actually use grant funds for, are going to be things like roofing, facade, interior build-outs, systems upgrades, and things like that. So let's kind of run through just a high level of the differences between the programs so you can get a sense of what might be a better fit for you. So the SBIF program is funded by tax increment financing, or TIF, and dollars approved by City Council. Every 30 days, a new area opens up for applications. These projects are funded through the reimbursement grant. Again, the client pays up front and are reimbursed after the project is complete. Geographic eligibility is limited to actually the TIF districts, but those are located across the city, northwest and south sides. Manufacturing and industrial projects are eligible, but new construction is not. And what's really unique about SBIF is that it is a non-competitive grant. This means that anybody who is eligible and meets the requirements and completes their project will be able to receive a grant, assuming that there are funds available. Now, the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, on the other hand, this is funded by a downtown density bonus program, so that for development near the loop, there's going to be a tax levied, and those funds are going to become eligible for NOF. Most projects use a construction escrow, and you can also do it just as a straight reimbursement grant, but either way, you will have to be able to provide some financing upfront. The geographic eligibility is limited to targeted commercial corridors on the south, southwest, and west sides. Manufacturing and industrial projects are not eligible, but ground-up developments at this time are going to be considered. Again, this, though, is a competitive grant, meaning that applications are going to be judged on neighborhood impact and their readiness to go forward in order to award funding. So let's dig in a little deeper into the SBIF program. Again, I talked about how this is our 25th year, and these are reimbursement grants for permanent building improvement costs. Residential are not eligible. Let's talk a little bit more about the parameters of the grant. So for applicant type, The key element is your property must be eligible, in a TIF district where SBIF funds are available and it's open to accept new applications. You can be a landlord of the commercial or industrial property and apply. You could be an owner operator, so you actually own the business and the property. You could be a tenant, as long as you have approval from your property owner, and even startups are eligible to apply, as long as you have a business plan. At the end of the day, no, all applicants must have a Chicago current business license. So when we know what kind of applicants can apply, let's talk about the eligibility limits. So if you are a landlord, you must have 9 million or less cumulative net worth and no more than 500,000 in liquid assets per individual. If you are a tenant or an owner-occupied business owner, you have to average 9 million or less in gross sales per year. If you are an industrial tenant or owner-occupied, it's 200 or fewer full-time employees designates your eligibility. Please note, if you are one of the owner-occupied property owners, you'll have to both fulfill the tenant and landlord requirements. Now, in terms of grant size, this is what we're talking about for your maximum potential grant. 250,000 maximum per industrial property. 150,000 maximum per commercial property occupied by a single owner or tenant. 250,000 maximum per commercial per property that is occupied by multiple tenants and owners, with 75,000 maximum assistance per individual applicant. It's really important to note that SBIF applications and grants are non-transferable between the applicants and properties. Applicants who wish to apply for SBIF funds for more than one property must submit separate applications for each property. Applicants can receive one or more grants up to their maximum assistance. Once the maximum assistance is reached, applicants will need to wait 3 years after they are paid out for their last grant to reapply. And for the reimbursement, if you are a business with 0 to 3 million in sales or net worth, you will receive 90% of eligible costs reimbursed. For 3 to 6 million in sales, 60%, 6 to 9, 30% eligible costs for commercial businesses. If you're an industrial project, you will be reimbursed 50% of eligible costs. But let's dig a little bit deeper here into how to find out if you actually are eligible to apply. To get started, the first thing is to find out, is your property in a SBIF district? We actually make that easy for you by going to SomerCor.com/SBIF to our new SBIF page. You can access the SBIF locator tool and enter your address. What you'll see on the next page actually highlights which TIF district you're in, when the district is open for new applications, also known as the rollout date, and you'll also see a delegate agency. A delegate agency is an organization that is contracted by the city of Chicago specifically to assist applicants with SBIF. Really, they can be helping you on the ground floor, first level of actually filling out the application. And so once you know, yes, I'm in a district that's open, the next question is, I'm in a TIF district now, is it open? Each month marks a new 30-day period in which SBIF districts are available and open for applications. You can find this out on our website. You can sign up via this on the SBIFgram, which is our newsletter. It's important to note, though, that if your district is not open for applications, any applications received will be discarded. They will not be considered. What we can do instead is actually put you on an internal email address list that's actually what we call our interested parties list. This is the list that anybody who's interested in applying for SBIF, when their area opens, they'll receive a notification. You can see here, this is the actual rollout calendar that we're looking at right now. It has the upcoming districts. It also lists how you can register for informational webinars. And as you can see, all of the district openings are going to be from the 1st of the month to the 30th of the month, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we are super strict about that deadline. If you apply after 5 p.m. on the day that the district closes, your application will not be considered. So it's really important to get it in on time. So we already know that you have an eligible property. We know that your district or your property is in a TIF district. Okay, let's say we know that it's also open for applications. Let's talk now about the business types and improvement types that are going to be eligible. Ineligible business type. This list is not comprehensive, but these are the types of businesses that we cannot accept through the SBIF program. That's going to be chain and franchise businesses, liquor stores, hotels, motels, adult uses, places of worship, startup bars, and taverns. These are all not going to be accepted. If you have a question about your business type to see if it's eligible, feel free to reach out and we're happy to answer that question. Next, we can kind of dig in a little bit more about what type of construction you can actually do with the SBIF grant. Here is an example. This is Brewer Coffee and Custard on 79th Street corridor. You can see that was a total transformation on their facade and storefront. So in terms of eligible improvement costs, we can cover roof and facade improvements, components of sign and awnings, which are permanently affixed to the building, ADA compliance structures, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, other mechanical systems. Sometimes we can also help with architectural and construction management fees, any build outs, interior renovations. And in some cases, we have been able to fund the purchase of adjacent land parcels for expansion or parking. Again, we won't be able to just do a, just a straight purchase of property for some new business, but we can talk a little bit more about a program later that does cover that. Ineligible improvement costs. These are the type of construction projects that unfortunately SBIF will not be able to cover and reimburse you for. Any new construction, and that means additions and expansions to existing properties as well as ground up construction. Standalone minor repairs or cosmetic improvements. If you come to us saying that I just really need a new floor, but there isn't any actual build out or related other items to it, that's not going to be something that we can do with SBIF. Equipment related expenses like appliances, computer, office furniture. If you can put it on a dolly and roll it in and out, that's not going to be covered by SBIF. This is really important in terms of some of the exterior things that are not accepted. That's going to be planters or outdoor dining, porches, roof decks, beer gardens, all of these things listed here, not eligible. Fencing, arbors, privacy screens. Unfortunately, all of these will not be eligible. Parking lot construction or repair, landscaping, and then of course, work on any interior residential units. I mentioned earlier that residential improvements are not eligible, but we know that in the city of Chicago, there's quite a few mixed use properties. We are able to use SBIF funds for envelope projects. So that's going to be, let's say that you have a mixed use property, if there is particular facade or mortar tuck pointing or roofing that covers inherently both the residential and commercial portions of a property, that's something that can be discussed, but never will the work of an interior residential unit be eligible. Design requirements. So this is really important that we really have like an actual separate design guidelines that are being built out by the city of Chicago. We have some currently, and they're going to be continually updated. And what we require is that anybody who is seeking a grant of at least $25,000, you have to use at least 10% of the maximum grant amount on exterior improvements. You can get a waiver if your exterior is brand new, but that's something that the Department of Planning and Development has to individually approve. We really do advise any of our applicants to consult with us at SomerCor and design professionals to make sure that your design is going to be ready for prime time and also just matches the character of the existing neighborhood. Every application and the design is reviewed individually by the Department of Planning and Development, and they do ask questions. So when we're in the review and approval stage, they're really going to want to know, when we're talking about this design, is it preserving or really trying to recreate the original design and window openings when possible? Where is there clear signage to identify the business? Is there good lighting, especially near entrances, to welcome customers? Do you have windows that are letting in natural light and attracting passerbys as opposed to window clutter? And additionally, other forms of security are preferred, but if we do have a security gate, we're only going to be able to assist with interior mounted ones. So it's really important that as you're thinking about the types of improvements you want to make to your business, that it's not just for what works best only for you. It's important to also have an eye towards what's going on the corridor and how you can make sure you're matching that character and being as welcoming as possible. When it comes to compliance, checks will be performed on all applicants during the approval stage to ensure that they are complying with child support laws and are not indebted to the city. This is really key. We'll be doing a scofflaw debt. And in order to participate in SBIF, you have to cure that debt. You can cure this debt by, again, if it's a small amount, being able to just pay that out right away so that you are in good standing. Alternatively, you can cure it through a city payment plan. But if you're going to use the payment plan option, you must be in compliance with that to receive any SBIF reimbursement funds at the end of the project. All applicants must be current on property taxes to receive a conditional commitment letter and for funding reimbursement. Every applicant must sign an economic disclosure affidavit, and they have to also agree that they will not relocate out of the TIF district or sell the property within a 3-year period following the disbursements of funds. And additionally, if you are a landlord applicant, in order to be reimbursed, landlord applicants must have a lease, an executed lease with a qualified tenant, and the tenant must be occupying and actively operating their business or nonprofit out of the lease space. So enough with sort of these nitty-gritty rules. Let's take a break here and look at some sample projects. First here, I have on the Madison-Austin corridor TIF, Wiley's Chicken and Ribs. This is at 3848 West Madison. You can see the before picture. The interior was just a shell. There wasn't much. Exterior boarded up, and they have the fencing there. And here's the after. You can see here that it was a totally new storefront, build out of a kitchen as well as the serving window. So this really was a great transformation, and I know that the ribs are really great. Here's another sample project. This is actually a landlord project. This is on the 47th and Halstead TIF. That's 1253 West 47th Street. This is the before picture. As you can see here, it was operating as an auto repair shop. You can see sort of the interior pretty dingy, the exterior not much in terms of any open windows, and definitely lots of bright colors and paint and design. And now this is the after. What you can see here is the landlord now rents this space out to a cabinetry design company, and they use this for storage and for doing work. But so it was actually a really great fit. But now the building is really beautiful and no longer an eyesore for the street. So if all of these things here for SBIF sound like something you're interested in and that you meet all those eligibility requirements, here are some tips to kind of get you started. Again, go back to our website, www.SomerCor.com/SBIF to complete an application within your open period. Again, you have to actually download the application, send it to us via email. I anticipate that we will be shifting our application process soon, but this is the best way for us right now. And you're responsible for making sure that your submission is received within the open period. If you don't receive a confirmation email back from us, please give us a call or send a follow-up email. And so you can see on the right, that's what our website looks like. And you actually have the button there to download the application, as well as the button to read the full SBIF program rules. A lot of people ask, what else do I need to submit when I actually submit my application? This is because the original application is only 3 pages long, and we do that on purpose. We want to have as many people apply as possible, so we don't want to make it too much of a heavy lift at the start. However, once you actually admit the 3-page application, if you move into the first stage of the program, which is where we start to vet your eligibility factors, we're going to be asking you for quite a few more documents. That's going to include business tax returns, proof of property ownership or lease if you're a tenant. We're going to want a business plan, especially for startups with projected income and expenses. So there are going to be some documents that we will request from you. We have on the SBIF website an actual area where you can see what some of these documents looked like and what they look like filled out as sort of samples. But you don't have to worry about figuring out which ones we need. We will be able to contact you directly and let you know what we need and when in order to move forward with the process. So let's talk a little bit about the SBIF project timeline. This isn't an ideal case. We recognize that we're dealing with finances, we're dealing with construction. So things can always take a little bit longer, but this is the goal. And we want to make it sure, so we have there in bottom in red, that unless you are granted an extension, you must complete your stage within the required time limit. If not, you will be removed from the program. So the important key is, if you know you're not going to make that deadline, let us know. Let us know as your project manager. And if there is a reasonable excuse as to why, maybe you had to change contractors, maybe there was another issue with getting the supplies in. If something is happening, let us know so we can do our best to support you and keep you in the program. So let's go over the phases really quickly here. Stage 1, applicant eligibility review. So before stage 1, you have actually submitted your application. The application period ends, boom. And then you actually are contacted by your project manager and say, all right, you're officially in stage 1. You now have 20 days to be able to provide any documentation that we are requesting from you, as well as prove site control. Again, site control is going to be showing your lease or showing your deed, just to make sure that we know you have the ability to actually do work at that location. Once you complete that, you go into stage 2. That's project eligibility review. You're going to have 120 days to put together plans and bids, and also make sure that your debts are cured. So again, either paid off or a payment plan is set up. Stage 3, project construction. This is the time that once you have your project approved by DPD, you receive a conditional commitment letter, and that is the sign construction can begin. No construction can start before that letter. If you do, you will not be reimbursed for those expenses. Concurrently, you have to be able to show us a proof of permit, or at least that you applied for your permit within 120 days of your commitment letter. You're going to have 10 months to be able to complete the construction. Proof of financing. Additionally, within 120 days of your commitment letter, you have to be able to show us you can have the financing to complete at least 50% of the project. We can talk a little bit more if you have questions about financing and how you're able to complete that, get that financing, access that financing upfront to be able to be reimbursed at the end. After your project is complete, you'll have reimbursement stage. It's going to be about 4 to 6 weeks, where SomerCor is going to do a site visit. We're going to review your invoices, canceled check, make sure there are no waivers of lien. And once it's processed, it'll be the 4 to 6 weeks to receive your check. One more time, just as a reminder, unless you receive an extension, if you do not complete the project, your assigned work within the time limit, you will be removed from the program. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. These are some resources that are on the SomerCor website, including some under the current applicant resources, some examples of what some of the filled out documentation looks like. We also have here lists of Chicago licensed contractors, as well as lists of other lenders that you could potentially work with if you do not have the financing on hand right now to complete the work. And I'm going to take just a moment here actually to pause before I move on to the next grant program, NOF. I'll pop on screen here for video. And Stella, if you have a moment, maybe you can read off some of the questions and I can try to answer them. Let's see, you know what? I don't see Stella at the moment, but I'll just hop on. Somebody just asked, how about restaurants? Restaurants are eligible to participate in the SBIF program. We do quite a few of them. So that is something that is eligible. I don't see any other questions related to the SBIF program here. So let me just double check. I don't see that. All righty. So I'm going to move forward with the next section of the webinar. Again, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Additionally, you can just wait until the end and I can answer them all in bulk. All right, let's move on to the second grant program that we're here to talk about today. And that's going to be the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. So NOF's mission, it's really about focusing on the South, Southwest, and West sides. Similar to the SBIF program, residential projects are not eligible. Excuse me. We're going to be exclusively talking about the NOF small grant. That's going to be grants up to $250,000. Again, I mentioned earlier, this is a competitive selection process based on your application details. Grantees are expected to complete their projects within 2 years. For us, these projects are really about expansion or renovation for existing businesses, new location for startup businesses and existing businesses, and then also new construction at vacant properties. All of these are eligible. I want to give the caveat here at the front that the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund program is currently getting a little bit of a refresh. I am hoping that in the next few months that there will be an updated website with more information, but I'm going to provide information today based on the existing rules. So who can participate in the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund? Commercial property owners with a business. You are not allowed to do this as a vanilla box project, meaning you want to own the business and you own the property, but you just want to vanilla box, meaning build it out so that you can eventually have a tenant in there. A commercial business tenant is eligible with landlord approval. Nonprofits providing a revenue generating commercial activity to the public are eligible. Non-eligible applicants, those that cannot participate. That's going to be residential properties, including home-based businesses and live workspaces. Manufacturing or industrial businesses and properties, not eligible for NOF. Social services organizations, including workforce development, schools, and daycare centers, not eligible for NOF. Churches and places of worship, also not eligible. In terms of uses of funds, this is very similar to the SBIF program. Eligible expenses are going to be things like major exterior and interior renovations to an existing business, build outs for incoming businesses, architectural design engineering fees, roofing, masonry, facade, security, mechanical systems, security systems. Things that we are not eligible are going to be the minor repairs, work on residential units. We're going to have repairs or to address building code violations, business operating expenses. All of these are not eligible. Let's look at a few examples to get inspired for what kind of work you can complete. This is a relatively recent project. This is Jamaican Jerk Villa in Auburn Gresham neighborhood on 79th Street. You can see what the before looked like and now the after. We've got it's a really awesome sit-down restaurant in Auburn Gresham with indoor and outdoor space. Another example, this one in Little Village is Osito's Tap. You can see here at the bottom, that was the before. It was a vacant, it's actually set up as a speakeasy. It was a vacant entranceway from a grocery store, a liquor store next to it. And now it's really a high-end location where you can grab great cocktails and bites. For NOF, this is the sample timeline. And it's really important that grantees, again, as with SBIF, that you really need to complete your project within the time frame. If you lose site control or have major project delays, you can be removed from the program. It's, again, really important. Let us know if something is going on so that we can try to keep you in the program. If there are extenuating circumstances, we can work with you, but we can only do that if we know what's going on. It's really important to also remember, as opposed to SBIF, which is a non-competitive grant, NOF, these projects are competitive. Applications are reviewed and prioritized based on how ready your project is, its design, and what kind of community engagement you received or worked on when you were actually putting your project together. Again, the NOF program is currently going a refresh, but you can still go to chicago.gov/NOF to learn more about the program and get ready to apply when the application does eventually open again. I am going to save these questions that I have now because I just have a few, and I will kind of answer everything at the end. So this is going to close off the end portion of the grants of this webinar. The next section that I'm going to focus on is SBA 504 loans. That's going to be for the purchase of commercial real estate as well as renovations. And this next section is going to be for statewide. It's not just for the city of Chicago. So this is, again, for the SBA 504 program. I know that, unfortunately, like federal programs, a lot of them, they have very, weird acronyms and numbers that make the name of them, which don't always describe what they do. And in this case, 504 is just the section of the legislation that the project was made is how they named it. And what it was created for really was to make sure that small businesses that may typically be prevented from accessing capital for their business be able to access this capital to create and retain jobs. Really, the focus is being an economic development program. The 504 is unique and that it actually has public policy goals, including creating jobs, community development, as well as minority, women, veteran-owned businesses, making sure we're supporting those. So for the 504 program, it is a financing tool to buy, expand, or refinance major fixed asset. What's a fixed asset? That's going to be your commercial real estate, equipment, heavy machinery. And the way the program works, it's a public-private partnership, meaning that you're going to have three key players. You as the borrower, a certified development company like SomerCor, we're going to be providing capital on behalf of the Small Business Administration, and then a third-party lender like a bank or a credit union. Who can use this SBA 504 program? For-profit businesses with under 20 million in tangible net worth, your prior average tax net income under 6.5 million. And for a commercial real estate project, you have to actually be occupying your business out of at least 51% of real estate that you purchase, 60% at least if you're going to be building it up. This means that, let's say that you have an industrial business and you want to get a new headquarters for you that's going to have enough warehouse and enough place for all your machinery, and you find a place, but it's still too big for you now. Maybe someday it would be the right size for you. What you are able to do is, as long as you're occupying at least 51% of that space, you could potentially rent out that last section of the building that you're not using and incur that income while you actually are owning the space. The cool thing about the 504 program is that it's really eligible for almost all businesses, as long as it's eligible federally. So this time, any cannabis-related businesses are not going to be eligible, but things like manufacturing, healthcare, restaurants, childcare, professional services, legal, accounting, healthcare, these are all going to be eligible for the 504. So why would you use the SBA 504 loan to purchase commercial real estate? Number one, below market interest rates mean lower monthly payment. Well, I'm sure we've all seen interest rates are rising. The 504 effective rate means below market. Right now for SBA 504 loans funding this month, the 504 SBA portion of the loan is funding at 6.04% interest rate. Less money down means freed up working capital. So what really is awesome is that we'll get a little bit more digging in on the next slide, but you as a small business owner, for the most part, will only have to put down 10% to be able to borrow. It's usually quite a bit higher. If you're putting down less money, that means you keep more money in your business. It's long-term financing. This means that your interest rate isn't going to be jumping around. You can have up to 25-year loan term for commercial real estate purchases, but you do have the option of actually refinancing if the rates do come down quite a bit. I've included here sort of the 504 loan structure and the comparison here. If you had a typical project with conventional financing with a regular loan, you would probably have to put 25% down and the bank would be able to finance the last 75%. With the SBA 504 program, typically you only have to put 10% down. The SBA portion is 40%, and then a bank is going to come in with the last 50%. I talked a little bit about the things you can use the 504 loan for. That's going to be either acquiring land or building, ground up construction, doing renovations, heavy equipment, fixtures, soft costs, and legal fees potentially. And eligible uses are going to be working capital, inventory, goodwill, vehicles, rolling stock, things like that. The other really cool element of the SBA 504 program is that you can actually use the refinance element to be able to access cash out. Small businesses that already own their property and have built up equity can take money out for working expenses ranging up to 20% of the appraised value of the company. You could actually use that cash out for things like salaries, rent, utilities, inventory. But we have here the ineligible uses going to be like acquiring a new business or personal expenses. I've got a couple of Chicagoland examples that I can show you here. This is Production Rental Chicago. This business has been around since 2016. It's primarily a rental supply company, but it also does refuse and snow removal. And they actually saw their sales increase by 60% between 2019 and 2021, and they were ready to actually buy their own space. They partnered with us and were able to get a loan to purchase an over 30,000 square foot building in West Garfield Park. And so this is actually now they own and are building equity in the space, as well as really building up an awesome entrepreneurship workforce program out there. Another example is La Peña Restaurante in Portage Park. This is an awesome project because it actually was supported by both SBIF as well as the SBA 504 program. So we work with them twice. So during COVID especially, he actually used the SBIF grant to actually do the exterior and interior improvements. And then he partnered with us to actually refinance his existing loan on the property and was able to cut his monthly mortgage payments nearly in half. So if you feel like you are ready to purchase your own commercial real estate, or you currently own real estate and are interested in refinancing it, you can certainly reach out to me directly, or also reach out to directly to your lender. And you're going to want to be pulling together some key information, like last 3 years of tax returns for your business. You're going to want to have to your income and expense projections, as well as personal information. Your personal credit is incredibly important for this type of lending. So making sure you've got personal financial statements and your own tax returns. And then we'll be able to kind of talk further about the viability of that project. I have the contact information of our team here. And I would say, please don't worry if you don't need to take tons of notes about this. I will make sure that BACP gets a copy of this presentation. You can also watch it again on the YouTube channel to be able to access this information, but this is the team that I work with. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this back to my contact information page, and I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that we have. If you have any questions on any of these programs, feel free to put them in the chat. Alternatively, you're also welcome to send me an email if you have a question that you're not sure or it comes up later. So let me take a quick look. Somebody asked me if I don't have business taxes, can I still apply? Yeah, we know that a lot of startup businesses, they're not going to have them yet. You certainly can apply. Just be prepared with a really strong business plan and recognize that before we're able to reimburse you, you will need to have, for the SBIF program, you will need to have an active business license. Somebody asked the question, I'm sorry, let me put my video back on here. Somebody asked the question if there is an indoor playground, if that was an eligible business. I know for SBA 504 loans, we've certainly done quite a few recreational. Potentially an indoor playground potentially could also work for SBIF and NOF, but we would have to dig a little bit more deeply into it, especially for NOF, because I know that at least the daycare centers are not eligible. So it would depend exactly on the format of the business. In terms of a credit score requirement, there isn't one necessarily a straight up credit score requirement for SBIF and NOF to participate. But we are going to want to make sure that you have a business that is going to be able to actually fulfill that space and actually be thriving there and work there, but also that you have the financing to make sure that you can actually do the work and then be reimbursed later. So that's sort of the critical component. Somebody was asking, what if you start up a new business like a restaurant? What services do you receive from a place like SomerCor? So SomerCor and actually is a business service organization, and we work with tons and tons of other ones here in the city of Chicago. Our bread and butter is really about project management and the financing aspect. If you are interested in additional resources to help you with your new business, whether that is understanding your finances, whether that is getting additional one-on-one business coaching, things like your business plan, I would recommend a couple of different places to look. One of those might be the Cook County Small Business Source. They have quite a few partners that they work with there. Another is Allies for Community Business, Women's Business Development Center. All of those are really great resources for the other things surrounding your business. When we're talking about the SBIF grant, if you're working with us on that, our focus is trying to help you do the actual construction project and getting that across the finish line. Somebody was asking if an after-school program resource center would qualify for SBIF. It potentially would, but it's important, nonprofits can apply. But again, it's really important thus that there is that financing aspect that you have to be able to complete the work. Let me look, I've got people coming in. Somebody asked how a trucking business potentially could access these programs. If the trucking business needed financing for, let's say they actually had an office or some type of structure, potentially then it would be eligible for these programs. In terms of the 504, similarly, if it had a structure or you want to buy land for your lot, that's something we could help with. But any rolling stock, so that's going to be trucks or trailers, things like that, we would not be able to support. Somebody was asking specifically about wanting to do like a consulting business, professional services. Again, the key for your grant or for being eligible for any of these programs is, do you have a property element that you're going to need the build out for? So if your financing needs for your business are more, I need startup costs, I need equipment like computers and things like that, or I need money for rent, it's not going to be eligible for this. But if you're looking for, hey, I want to buy this space and hey, I want to build it out, that is something that we can still talk about. Let me see if we have any other questions here. Oops. Any grant resources for startups? Well, again, so the SBIF and NOF can be for startups for the types of property that you're looking for. If you're looking for grant startups that are more working capital, I'm not aware of any right now, but I would keep an eyeball out to see if anything new comes up. Most of the grants that I am aware of are really right now that we operate at least are focused on this type of projects and actually being able to develop the commercial real estate. However, I know, again, I can bring up Allies for Community Business or Women's Business Development Center. They're micro lenders, Greenwood Archer as well. And they do, now they don't have grants necessarily, but they do have, smaller loans and lines of credit that for startups can be eligible for, and they can kind of tie in that type of working capital and guidance together to help and support you. I believe that they also have specifically, if you are in the food and beverage industry, Allies for Community Business is working with BACP on the Good Food Fund. So I would check in on their website. I know maybe Stella maybe can add that detail in the chat, but that's where I would look as well. All right, I have a whole bunch. Question is, they're in the process of getting their business license. Is it best to apply? What's my license issues? I have a brick and mortar and a signed lease, but funding election. Okay, great question. So I would say it's if your area is open for applications, apply. And even if you don't have your business license yet, make sure you're very upfront and say, hey, this is the work I'm doing. This is where I am in the application process. And hopefully by the time you actually move into stage 1, which is when you're going to actually have to be able to show, that you're actually have your site control and other things like that, that you will have the license there. But that's something that we can work on you with. So I generally say if you are missing one thing and everything else is together, but your area is opening for applications, apply for SBIF. Similar for NOF, but definitely apply. As there grants for a startup for equipment. Again, I don't know of any grants that are specifically for equipment, especially if we're talking like office equipment, but I would also really push you towards investigating some of the micro lenders like Allies for Community Business or Women's Business Development Center. Those can be for smaller, expensive, smaller projects and can be a better setup for you. Somebody asked if they could use the SBA 504 program to refinance an 8-unit residential apartment building. No, similar to SBIF and NOF, the 504 program is only for commercial real estate, and it's going to be owner occupied. So you as the owner have to be operating your business out of it. An apartment complex is not going to be eligible. Let me see if there's any. I know I've got a lot of people who are asking like, well, is there something else of other grants? I apologize. I don't know all of the things. If you want to email me on the side, I'm always happy to see what other resources are out there for you. But right now I'm not aware of any specific grants that are for vehicles or small equipment, but I'm always happy to kind of talk to you about other resources that might be out there. The further we get away from COVID, sort of the fewer grant opportunities that aren't sort of more institutional like SBIF and NOF that I see, but I'm always happy to try to talk and help. There's not too long ago. I'm sorry. I don't know about the specific, Patrice, about the BACP program, so I'm going to have to leave that to their team. I would reach out to them specifically to answer that question for you. All right. Well, I hope that this conversation has been helpful and that for those of you who are already business owners or new entrepreneurs who are interested really in having your space and improving your space to make it so you can operate your business there, and also really improving that commercial corridor in that neighborhood where you are, that you consider working, applying for SBIF and NOF if you're eligible, or applying for an SBA 504 loan. We are really excited to be able to help, as many businesses and entrepreneurs create job in every community through access to capital. As a reminder, SBIF and NOF, those are geographically tied. They're only for City of Chicago businesses. It's only for if your business is one of those designated TIF areas for SBIF or one of the impacted corridor areas for NOF. For the small business, for SBA 504 loans that we do, we serve the entire state of Illinois. So you don't need to have your business in Chicago for us to potentially be able to help you. With that, I still have my information here on the screen. If I didn't answer your question today, feel free to send me a note and I'll do my best to help. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Stella, is there anything else I have?
No, thank you, Kim, for today's presentation. I hope all of our attendees got what they were looking for today. Again, this webinar was recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. Please register for our upcoming webinar, our upcoming Small Business Expo, which is this Saturday at Truman College at 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. You can register at Chicago. You can register at chicago.gov/Biz Expo. That's BIZ Expo. Again, please register for our upcoming Small Business Expo. That's this Saturday at Truman College from 8:30 to 1:30 at chicago.gov/Biz Expo. Thank you again to Kimberly and hope to see you guys on Saturday.
Thanks, everyone.